I'm Shauna Lee. This is Infinity Readings, and this is the energy report for November 4th, 2025. I'm not doing a reading today. I'm just going to get into some mental capabilities that are going to be expanding over the next while and into the future. So I just want to make a baseline here because I'll be talking more about these as time goes on. Mindscape, psionics, psychic abilities, mental capacities, everything's going to be expanded. Okay, so we're moving into frequencies that will allow all of this to be upgraded, updated. All of this is going to be influenced in the near future here. So I want to put a basis to maybe send people back to, I don't know. A lot of you will probably have heard of all of this stuff. And as we go forward, expect to be expanded in this area into things that they may not even have definitions for in the future. So here we go. Again, this won't be a reading. I'm just going to babble about all of this psychic stuff and upgrades. So I wanted to create a basis with the 5 clairs. If you haven't heard of them, they're all over the internet. You can look at them, research them, go in depth with them. But what we're specifically talking about here is your 5 senses and how they can be superpowered in a way that the internet will deem as science fiction, but you will find that these abilities will come to be in the physical. So I want to talk about those. And when we're talking about clairs, the first one that comes to mind is clairvoyance. And that usually has to do with clear seeing from instinctive abilities from higher realms, right? Where it comes from, I'm not even going to get into that. I'm just going to say that it's more evolved than what we are, and it's to get us into a more evolved state of being, which will only help us in the future. And that, so far, is where it's coming from. Now, the clairvoyance, again, that can speak to visions and images, symbols you're seeing in your physical world. You could be seeing them in your head. You can be seeing this in your dream time as well. But this is more in your head, like imaginary things that pop up in your head can be linked to psychic abilities in that way. Clairvoyance, it's a thing. You know, people exhibit it. You may not want to accept that it's real, but it is real, and it's going to be more prominent in the coming times. So that's the basic. I don't know if that's the where they start, but for me, I'm a visual learner, so this is also a visual trait that is the one that I use the most, I would say, and the ones they utilize through me because I enjoy receiving things that I can see. I can figure it out right away. A picture's worth 1,000, right? So it's all of that area. It really gets through to me. So that's where they'll send that energy. And when you get energy sent down to you, it will go in a way that you prefer to receive it. And some people may prefer to receive it in one specific area, or you may be able to expand that to all areas, which I feel is what they want you to do. They want you to open up all areas. But again, some people just not, they're not open to that, so it won't open up. So clairvoyance, that's number 1. Number 2, clairaudience, clear hearing, sounds, words, messages that you may hear in your head that are not from you, something else, greater knowledge than you. It could be your higher self, or it could be higher than that still. But nonetheless, that communication, that instinct that comes in the form of sounds, words, and messages. Then we have clairsentience, the feeling, the empathy, the emotion, the sensations. This I kind of get mixed up with the next one, but the feeling is the empathy. So we're talking about emotional feelings having to do with picking up on things that are, you know, illogical, not illogical like irrational, but something that you don't know why you're feeling it, because there's nothing in your physical universe to, like a mother's instinct, like my gut dropped, I don't know why, but and maybe it's because there was a kid in trouble or whatnot. So you have these feelings. That's clairsentience. Claircognizance is that knowing. And again, I get this mixed up with the sentience, but it goes deeper into a sense like you just know this, but I've not studied it. But there's an internal knowing, and that speaks to that gut reaction. Like my gut says, it's from that core. How do you explain that? Yeah, where you just kind of know it's the truth, even though you really don't have the knowledge in your physical universe to understand if it's the truth. You just feel that it's the truth. So clairgustance, I think that's how I'm pronouncing it that way, but I don't know if that's how it's pronounced. But this talking about the sense of taste. So sometimes you can get a psychic taste for something, either somebody explaining it and then you actually can taste it in your mouth, or like I've had scenarios where people, how would you say, something happening to them and you can taste something in their mouth, like metallic taste or something, and you express that to the person across, and it usually means something. When you get a psychic sense like that, it's usually very profound for the other person. So tasting can have something to do with that, and that is another sensation that's going to be heightened. Clairalience, whatever. Smelling has to do with smelling and whatnot. Like an example of this, I had an instance where this was before I did any kind of psychic work or work on the self to improve skills, I had one of my family members pass away, and they wore a certain signature perfume, and it was a perfume that if I wore it, it didn't smell the same. It only smelled that certain way on that certain person. And so I remember I liked it so much that I put it on. It's like, no, it's almost like it turned rancid on with my chemistry. It just didn't match right with that perfume. But when when that family member wore it, it had a certain signature to it. And after they passed, they would send that signature and it would fill a whole bloody room, and then it would be gone. Like it would fill up the whole room, or you're walking everywhere. You can't figure out where it came from because the whole room is full of it. Like that person was there. But that was the signature scent she wore. So in the past, after she had passed, the whole room filled with the perfume of her, and it just drew me to her because I didn't know anybody else that wore that perfume or smelt the same way wearing that perfume. Because after she passed, there was other people that wore it, but it didn't smell the same. And again, that was a sign from above to me that she was there. So, things like that can happen. Smell. And for me, smell is a very powerful one. I don't know that I go to utilize it lots, but it comes to me lots from the other realms, like from the guides and whatnot, and also from passed on loved ones, because sometimes you go into Nana's house and it smells like baked cookies or baked bread or whatever, you know what I mean? Or you have an aunt and they wear a signature perfume and cologne or whatever. These are the things, right? And it will take you right there because it's ingrained in you that every time you see them, that's the smell you smell, and it locks in there. It locks in a psychic sense, and it's triggered for that person. And that was something that I had as well, that comes and goes, and it's amazing what they can do, because I've had a lot of, and again, I don't know if it was my guides or my family member that passed over themselves. I think it was the family member. A mix of both, I don't know. But there was an awareness when I smelled that perfume and she wasn't there, that she was there. She was there in spirit, not in physical form. But yeah, crazy things like that can happen. That was number 6, the smelling. 5 and 6, smelling and tasting. Clairtangency has to do with touch and psychometry. What would be another word for that? Where you touch things and then they take you places, right? I have some weird instances, and some of them are just not relevant to anything. I can tell you about one of them I had was I was in a store. I like to kind of look at gems and stuff in those gem, rock stores or whatever. What do you call them? Semi-precious stuff. And sometimes I get guided to touch things, and sometimes I get guided to not touch things. But curiosity, right? And there was a little sphere. I remember it was a round a sphere rock that they had in a bunch. And one just stuck out to me, and it was like I was, how would you say, wrestling with the fact, should I touch it or not? Because sometimes I can touch things and I can feel things is not so. So I didn't know whether I should or not. And again, this was kind of before I was working on my abilities. And I just went to grab it to kind of feel how smooth it was and if there was any pits in it or whatever. And I went to grab it, and suddenly I was transported into the warehouse that it came from. And the essence was that I'm sitting here for a long time. Like, I'm picking up the product, which was a gem sphere, right? And it's like that living thing was exposing to me where it had been, So I went to that warehouse basically in my mind, right? I'm physically there touching it, and there's like a time warp where my brain is seeing the warehouse where it was sitting until it was picked to go into, this shop. And then when I went deeper yet, which I didn't actively, I just picked it up, and all of these things came instantaneously. So it's taking me a while to explain it, but it all happened in a flash, of maybe 10, 15 seconds, not even, of energy that comes at you and you get downloaded with it, so to speak. And the next thing that I seen was, before it got to that warehouse, I seen an Asian lady, and she was literally sending energy to it. And she had the most pure energy. Oh my goodness. Talk about goodness. It was a pure energy, light, compassionate, soft, sensitive, and she literally was taking care to intend wherever they got this from, I don't know. I never did ask. I just kind of sat there frozen for till it was all over, and then I put it down and I left. I did not buy this sphere, which is interesting. I should have bought it because it was clear. It was clean. Was what it was trying to tell me. It's like, pick me, I'm clean. But yeah, and then I saw the lady, and she was clearing it. And basically at the time I was wondering, because I had a few things touch my hands that had heavy energy in them. Not necessarily negative, but long and detailed. And the more I touched it, it was like I let it go. It was kind of like a movie that I didn't want to sit down and watch, because it was just not heavy, because sometimes they say heavy in the way of like low vibrational. It wasn't heavy in that way. It was just a lot of information was coming, and it was just like, okay, I gotta let go, because I can't. It was a purse, somebody's purse in the family, and then suddenly I knew who it was. Blah, 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 feeling all these feelings. I was like, okay, that's enough information. TMI, right? This was because sometimes I'll have these little snippets, I'll go about and I can touch all these other things and I kind of don't get nothing. But every now and again, it's like, I don't know, I'm more open, or the energies are right, or the planets are aligning. I don't know. But certain situations, I can pick up things. And yeah, with this sphere, it was basically telling me I'm clean and everything. So I kind of went home in shock. I went through the rest of the store where my mind was with that rock. As I physically moved around, the mind was still processing all that it had downloaded to me. Yeah, one of those weird stories that you can't really talk to with anyone, but it was a story and it was a psychic sense and it was a building upon a regular sense that was above and beyond. So need to explain that. And that has to do with, if you're the type of person that likes to go to yard sales or to museums. Museums are huge. You know, this is where you're going to get all this stuff. You're going to get stuff that has a history and has feelings in it. And it's not necessarily that the thing has feelings, but it absorbs its surroundings. And sometimes you can get a whole 360-degree download, and it's very overwhelming. So now I kind of put my hands in my pockets when I go through stuff like that, because you never know what you're going to get. But again, the essence of expanding on all of the senses here, and they can take you to places you're not quite prepared for in the moment. Because sometimes you can intend to do things, and either lightly things will come in, or maybe nothing will come in at all, but you keep trying, and then you get, I find I get smacked with this stuff all the time. I get, when I least expect it. So not when I'm seeking necessarily, but also, when I'm doing a reading for someone or a healing session or whatnot, energy work, then I get as I'm seeking, I get it, because there's an acknowledgement of a session, quote unquote, that I'm doing. So you do a ritual to tap into that, grounding and all of that. But when you're kind of out, doing your daily thing, shopping or whatever, I get a lot of that. So, there's certain times that it can increase, and there's certain times that it can't. I find it interesting though, going into stores, there's too many energy waves in there. And I think it's those digital things that the people carry, like in Walmart or any kind of store where they have to scan things with wireless stuff or wireless things everywhere. I find when I get into stores like that, depending on my sensitivity day, like if I'm on a 10 scale where everything is logging into my psyche, I can have a day where that can just really throw me off. So a lot of what I've found too, along with the increase of abilities, is the ability to work within this realm and not be overwhelmed. And I'm still dealing with that. I have my moments where I feel powerful and I shut things down, or I'm able to shut things down. And there's other times where I feel like I'm in control and I don't get the ability to shut things down, and things can overwhelm no matter. So that's just kind of a sliding scale for me. And again, there's things I got to work on there, and your time and your focus, where you're going to put it. And a lot of people during this increase of energies are not going to have a lot of time to focus on this. So that's where this whole meditation idea, calm, cool, collected, relaxed, clear of mind thing comes in. And really, when I started working on this and they started pulling me out of the darkness, so to speak, basically what they were doing was getting me to get into some kind of a schedule where I quiet the mind once a day. And for me, I had a young child with me, and it was the evenings. I would put the boy to bed, and then I'd have my half an hour de-stress, and then, well, I think it was more like an hour and a half, but anyway, I would get into a zone where I'd be relaxed. Then I would tune in, and I would just, it started with like low-key music or just mellow out music, in the evening, just to kind of, I don't know, just music kind of tunes me out. So I would get into those modes, and then it get to a point where I started to journal or just write shit from music. Like I would get music, and it's, and they could even be singing words, and then I'd be getting like streams of thoughts and I just write it down. I have like 10 books of that where I did that. And then, you do this every day for a certain amount of time and you get into that mode. Now, I've gotten out of it recently, but these readings are a way for me to tap back into that energy and bring it forth. But I know that once my life starts speeding up again, or, as my life is speeding up, I need to take time to just relax. It can center you, and it really does help you along the journey when all of this downloading stuff is going to be on the incline, right? The increase of all of this stuff can be quite overwhelming. They had to bring me along an emotional ride because I was very emotionally immature at a certain point here, and I probably still have echoes of that as I go through here. I grew up with a bunch of boys, so I have a little bit of a side to me that's very shut off emotionally, and I've been working on helping that part become more compassionate, more caring, more considerate. That being aware of that within self. I'll always be, I think, a little bit on the left, having to do with the emotions. Like my chart is more full of air in that way. So I think that will always be something that I will be a little light on. But, you work on things and you try and be more compassionate, more thoughtful, more connected to people as you go on. And you can, you only win by increasing your own self knowledge, right? And then you go outward and what you learn there. So anyway, I'm getting off on tangents. I wanted to lay out all the clairs, the clairvoyance, the sight, the vision, the symbols that come in images that come in your head, clairaudience, the hearing, the thoughts, the words, then the messages that can come through again through your head, and things that make you aware of things that you don't know intrinsically or have no reason to know. Clairsentience, that's that feeling, the empathy having to do with emotions. Claircognizance is that knowing, that gut feeling that something's off, but you have no idea what that is, or you may know what it is without having any physical knowledge. Like, how do you explain that? No logic to bring you there. It's just that feeling. I know that something's wrong. Well, what's wrong? The woman's instinct. Knowing, clairgustance, the tasting. Again, you can get psychic tasting. You can taste something. Sometimes people will describe something and then suddenly you taste it in your mouth. Like that kind of thing. Clairalience, I think that's how you say it. Clear smelling. So having to do with the nose. What is taken in scent kind of way. Man, that can take you on trips. Like I smell things all the time and it just takes me places. And I don't know if it's like past life, or I don't know what the deal is. Like, because I'll smell something that I don't think that I've ever smelt before in my life, but it takes me, almost away in history somewhere. And it's like, wow. And I just float along with it, but it's just weird. Visually, you'll get visuals and of a time and a place and castles or whatever. You go there. And then clairtangency is, that touch, that psychometry, touching things and then getting impressions from that. And, sometimes mediums do that as well. Well, a medium is a medium, and you're all going to be in that. You're all going to be open to that field. Whether you jump in there is a different story. Now, I also wanted to talk about some things that are not defined yet, that are not. And I want to explain to you a scenario that happened to me. And if you know a word for it, to put it down, because I've searched high and low for like 7 or 8 years, I cannot find anything even kind of really close to it to understand what's going on here. So some of the things that I've had, like I've come from a sense of depression in my youth. And like I said, 2012 is an area where I was really pulled out by another force to get out of that above and beyond my own strength, it seems. But whatever. So when I was dealing with that, I still had psychic senses coming through, like the basics, having to do with all these 5-7 clairs, right? But when I started working on my psionics, the mental capabilities, and having to do with psychic abilities, if you will, there were things happening to me that I could not explain. And I didn't know, and it just, to put it into words, it's very hard. And you're going to see that here. Because one of the things I did when I was, I don't know, it was a while back, again, starting my journey of working on my abilities. It was just a normal Saturday or Sunday, I can't remember. And me and my boy were going to go to the park. I loaded up the bike. And I was going to go sit and read a book. And he was going to go drive around, whatever he wanted to do. I said, you can go anywhere you want. Just, there's a big loop there, trail. I said, you can go whatever you want to do. Just leave me alone for half an hour so I can get in a chapter. And I'm fine. So he would take off. So we get to the park, go in the parking lot, unload the bike, and I send him off. And as I'm unloading the bike, I'm aware of my surroundings, but all the colors start to shift. And what was happening was not only the colors shifting, but my visual was shifting. And it was basically two different visuals were coming into view. And I'm not talking third eye sense here either. I'm talking my physical realm. I'm looking, and the colors of everything was starting to, what is it, sepia? That yellowy kind of tint. You can kind of see there's color there, but it's drained of most of the vibrancy, but it's not black and white. And yeah, it was like these two things just over each other. There was a movie just recently. Well, not recently. It was a while back. I can't remember the name of it now, but it was about this couple that was seeing through each other's eyes. It kind of touched on that energy having to do with that in some kind of way. But the only problem was through this visual, I didn't see no one, hear no one. I heard things in that realm. Like I was in a park with concrete parking space, you pull up to the your car bumper, and there's a sidewalk, and there was trees and a lake, and there's birds flying above. And what I saw on top of that was trees, but they're palm trees, and they're rooted in the pavement. And I'm like, wait a minute, that tree's going in the pavement. That doesn't, it was a reality on top of my reality. I can't explain it any other way. And it was so surreal, yet so profoundly different than anything that I could have ever, I couldn't have made this up in my head. Why would I? Because it's so hard to explain. It was something that I couldn't explain. Now, I've gone through many thoughts of thinking, well, maybe this is like two realities coming into play. And as I scan back over it, I did feel a sense of me being different. While I saw this vision, my own soul felt more empowered because it was like two of me in one. So, but again, this is me analyzing after the fact. When I was there, I was just looking at every detail and everything I was seeing. And I knew nobody else was seeing this because people would react, right? And there was a bubble of nothing around me. Like there were people about 50, 25 feet away, but in my immediate surroundings, nobody was right there. My son was leaving the 20-foot radius, and I was just sitting there absorbing everything. Like I must have looked like I was stunned. That's how I felt. I was looking at every detail. And these palm trees, I'm like, that we don't have palm trees here. I'm up in Canada. What the heck is going on? And again, all the color being drained. So this was one experience that I had. One. I kind of think I'll skip the rest of them. They're pretty weird. But one of them brought me to that center where it was basically two dimensions in one. And in that other place where the palm trees were and the sand, there was no water there, but it looked like there could be, but it was all sand. Where I had water was all sand there. And it wasn't like it fit completely. Like I said, there was trees going in the pavement and sand where pavement was, and cars were there, and it was like, it was so weird. So it'd be like a double vision thing, but again, I could, I remember sensing in my physical where I was in the park. The birds overlay, like a lot of the audio was coming from my side. And then when I'd look into the palm trees and I noticed that they were rooted in the pavement, like I'm trying to understand how this is in my vision, I could feel the birds there, but they were different birds and they were speaking different, and there weren't as many there. Like it was more abandoned there. There was no people there. It wasn't a park. It was just empty and open, which was weird in itself. It was like desolate, but yet it was beautiful and bright. It felt like Florida. Like I was just amazed, and I was just soaking it all in. So again, like an essence wave of energy merged with the essence wave of energy I was in is what I felt. And I keep calling them essence waves because I get them a lot. And I talk to my guides, and I'm not very assertive with my guides. One, because I know that they kind of don't give me all the answers. They let me feel things out, and I know there's a certain process to doing that. But also, having to do with these things, it's like, do I want to know what this is or not? And trying to unravel all of that. The first thing I thought was that it was either a past life, but then it was like, there's no people, there's no feeling per se. It was just me noticing another place. So I didn't feel that past life or parallel. It didn't seem like that. But now, it's just a big question mark. I still don't understand what those things are. And I get them at the most inopportune time, not when I'm focusing on psychic senses, not when I'm trying to do anything specifically in that way. It just comes as a wave on top of my existence. And sometimes there's a great feeling of empathy that comes with it, that other place. I have a certain feeling, I'm happy, whatever, and then I get a certain feeling, and it's not like it's sad or angry or mad or anything like that. It's just different. So it makes me feel different. How do you say? It's like a sideways shift. It doesn't pull me down, but it makes me long for that feeling, yet I can't describe the feeling. I don't know what the feeling is, but it's like I want to go back there. Again, a lot of this stuff is going to be expanding in ways you have no idea. So this is just one, convoluted story that I had. And again, it all happened in a matter of seconds, unloading my son's bike as we were going to the park that Sunday. And I was just open. I was just in relaxation mode for sure. I was really happy and ready to go and get into this book and just sit in peace for a half an hour and absorb myself in this book. So in essence, I might have opened a gateway there to bring something in and just not known how powerful these things can be. Sometimes that happens. So I want to share that with you. And if you enjoy these little things, I have a lot of them. So I won't bore you with more of them unless you want to know. But see, things like that, I don't know. Like there's a lot of things you look up, psionic, psychic abilities, all of these things. And you go from like, they have, what is it? There's a game that the kids plays, like Dungeons & Dragons. They have like a whole fortress of lists of things that, and I'm like, and even in the Marvel universe, like Spider-Man, he's got abilities, all this stuff. You look through all of that, and again, it's in the sci-fi realm, but it's coming to you. Like, these are abilities that we had in the past, past lives or whatever you want to call it. Past, past lives. And they're been taken away from us, stolen away from us, shoveled away from us, to the degree that now we're going to get all this back, and we may not know what to do with any of it. Like, I don't. I know that a lot of times. I mean, I honestly, to help your fellow man, that. But to a deeper degree, like you kind of don't know how to advance forward with a lot of this stuff. So some of the things that have been popping out lately is bilocation, being in two places at once. There was actually a saint, Padre Pio. He was noted in history as having this. He was able to be in one place and also show up physically in another. And this is possible. I know this is possible. Precognition, again, these are things that people have and have had for centuries, but they don't talk about it. Sometimes they'll have a dream instead of sitting down and seeing it. You do see it. It's just in your dream time, and that's another dimension, and it's very valid. We need to look in these areas and take this information as valid. Telepathy, that's something, I think that's the oldest one on the book. Telepathy is always there. People have it. They absolutely have it. I know, I can sense when people are pulling energy from people, but I know that, I can also sense when a person is in rejection mode, like they don't accept that telepathy is a thing. So they just think, well, I had an idea. And I say, okay, where did it come from? Well, it came from me. Okay. But meanwhile, it's very congruent to the person in the room, but they will not allow their mind to go that you can get into that other person's energy zone, right? And it's possible. Telekinesis. Now, when we're talking about air, fire, water, and earth, telekinesis would be the earth. That would be the tangible things, manipulating physical things on the earth, moving things with your mind only. And you got pyrokinesis, which is dealing with the energy of fire and heat, accumulating that with your mind. Hydrokinesis, being able to control water in some kind of way. Aerokinesis, air. Now, interestingly enough, I do have a little bit of experience, like tiny, with aerokinesis. And it's interesting to me, I just realized my chart is made up astrologically mostly of air. So I found that interesting that it's air I can manipulate, but none of the other ones really work for me. So I don't know. You look in your chart and see what you have mostly, and then go to that element. So if you have, say you have a lot of water in your chart, then go to the hydrokinesis, look up. There's tons of videos now out. Some people, they can just look on this and then look at, and if you are young, in youth, and even below that, man, you got more instantaneous, how would you say, you would just have the gift, and you would just be able to pick it up like nothing, like you've done it all your life kind of thing. Yeah, the youth will have a good edge on all of this stuff, this kinesis stuff, mental stuff, really intense. Yeah, look to the youth. And again, look in your astrological chart and see, what are you mostly made up of, and go to that element and see if that's not more easily accessible, and then maybe work your way down to the next element. So I didn't have much luck with physical, though I did have a lot of dreams of learning to lift papers, light things. What was I lifting? I was lifting papers, and I was lifting, what do you call that? Crocheted Afghans? Not Afghans, but like little doilies. I was trying to lift doilies. And I remember that. I remember waking up and going, wow, that was intense. Again, one of those dreams that seems more real than your real life. Yeah, it was one of those, and it stuck with it to this day. I could pick out everything. I was in an office building. There's green walls, and there was nothing but stacks of papers around me. And I was literally going, and it had something to do with the breath work. And I remember I still do that every once in a while to this day, practice, and then I just shake my head. Yeah, it didn't work today. But it was like I had to do some kind of a breathing thing. And then as I breathed out, that's when the energy would flow out of me. And as I breathed in, it was like kind of building an energy. Breathe out, and that's when the things would lift. And I remember they were all the way across the room, so it's not like I was blowing them papers. And I remember it was papers, doilies were a little heavier than the paper. because they were going in weight. We were going upwards trying to lift weight, and I could get things to move, but I couldn't keep them moving. I couldn't keep it up. Like I'd get like excited and then it would drop, and I would lose focus. So these were again in my dreams, but that's another dimension. That's where you can gain abilities for this physical part of you. So anyway, need to mention that. So yeah, on the physical plane, I can't do any of that. But I have dealt with water now, or sorry, with air. My sun sign is water, but I am more made up of air. So, okay, now having to do with the air, I have tried a few times to sit with nature, and I have had things come at me where it's peaceful, there's no wind, all of a sudden a wind comes through. So again, I'm made up of more air. Don't know if that has anything to do with it or not, but when I go out there, my intention is to do these things, and I can get little gusts of things. And I had one day where I sat and I'm like, I ain't leaving this chair until I get results. And I would bring it up, and then I'd let it go, and then I'd wait to see what nature does without my influence, and then it'd be nothing. But it was very minimal. It was like, yeah, you could feel like the leaves blowing a little more and whatever, and then it's like, oh, so I have no control or whatever. But again, these are going to be abilities that we're all going to be able to do. And again, what consequences will come from that, I don't know. Because I'm still learning, there's parameters between good and bad, right? And if you alter things too profoundly in nature, my gut is telling me there's consequences for that, right? Because you can affect, because as I infuse my energy into the air, okay, I'll sit there and I'll meditate, I'll relax the mind, body, all of that, protect ground and center. And then I will get into a point where I merge with that air, and there's a sense of, I'm still trying to figure it out, but there's a sense of care and connection to the air itself, where I wouldn't say you merge into air, but you become very understanding of empathy within the air, if this makes sense. It's hard to express because air, what is it? It's kind of a void, right? But at the same time, right? So I was pulling in that energy and pulling it out. And so again, I didn't get results where I was, yeah, I totally did it. It was like, I don't know if that was just a natural breeze coming through at the exact time that, again, coincidence. I say I don't believe in them, but I convince myself all the time. So again, these are things you should just practice, and then if there are people out there that are sending videos and whatnot, but again, there are consequences for overdoing things. So you can't just go crazy with stuff and not have a consequence. But if you're just, feeling and pulling energy and stuff like that, I think to gain kind of muscles in this area, I think you're okay. But as I was doing it, and the more I got reception there, the more I got an understanding that, yeah, we got to be careful because there's always a consequence. I've convinced myself I've created rain a few times, and that was very cool. And again, it was about connecting with nature on a heart-centered level. Once you're in your heart, man, you come from true compassion. If you're going there to boast about your ego and that, it won't, well, I can't say it won't work. I've seen people in this way do this stuff, but I think they've gotten to some kind of a point there where they can do that. And again, you got to watch for consequences of pulling too much energy in an unnatural flow, right? Free will. You got to let the air do whatever it wants. If you want to bring it up a bit, you can bring it up. But you can't create chaos with it, right? Boom. So anyway, talking a little long about that. So, and there's a lot of other, there's things like shape shifting, teleportation, astral projection, out of body stuff, remote viewing. There's tons of resources on the internet. I'll see if I can post a few. Like I tried for a while the remote viewing. I don't have the patience for that. I'm more instantaneous, I would say. I don't know if that's spoiled in the psychic way. You can't be spoiled. You got to do the work or you don't. But there's certain things that I can do, and certain, like, yeah, I had an instance, what I would consider on the boundary line of remote viewing, but maybe people, remote viewers, wouldn't consider it remote at all. But I had a session with someone early on, and they basically didn't know if they wanted a reading or a healing or energy work or what. So then we basically had, like, I have an intro session, a second session, and then a closing session. And we talk about, well, what is your problem? Like, what's wrong with the way, what do you want to change in your life, that kind of thing. And through that process, we realized that she wanted an energy session for her health. So I went in there and I said, yeah, we can do that. So we went in, and basically what had happened was I introduced her to what I was going to do. And I said, the way I do it is, you go home to your house. When do you go to bed? Oh, 9:30, 10. Okay, so you're always in bed by 10, or is it more towards 11? Well, 10:30, 11. Yeah, I'm usually sleeping by 11. So I would how would you say, start the session around the time that she would say I'm going to bed, so I get a relaxed state of mind and whatnot. And basically I would text her a little energy symbol to say, okay, I'm going to send you that. You don't need to respond or nothing. But, if you're someone that gets disoriented quite easily, you could just make sure you're sitting or laying down, that you're not going to be in too much of movement, like getting up and down, or needing to have concentration on something like holding a TV up or something while you're mounting things, being in a position where you're not, you're relaxed. So I would send these little lightning bolts saying I'm starting the energy session, and then I'd tell her I will send you another energy bolt when I'm finished. And if anything weird happens in the meantime, it's probably from me, and we can discuss it in the second session. So then I would give her 24 hours, 12 to 24 hours, and then we would meet again and discuss, okay, this is what I did. I would give her the audio session from it, because I would record, what I'm doing as I'm doing it, and as I'm guided, and what my guides say and tell me about what's going on there. And the third meeting, we ended up meeting outside of the home, whatever. And I remember, because, okay, so you got someone here, I can read minds. So again, some people don't believe that, even though they know you're intuitive. I can see things through my psychic senses. I don't have to be at your home in order to walk through it. And basically I had a scenario where my guides were showing me her room, because her TV being in the bedroom was a problem for her getting to sleep. So they were showing me her whole bedroom. And then me, kind of nonchalantly explaining it to me, she was looking at me in shock, and I'm like, what's the matter? She says, you've not been to my house. I said, I know. And then I clicked in. I'm like, oh yeah, she caught me. I gotta explain this. How am I gonna explain this? And I thought, well, nothing like the truth. And she goes, you've never been to my house. I said, I know, but my guides are showing me, you have a problem because your TV is facing the bed, and not only that, you leave it on at night. She's like, yeah, I do. And then she was thinking, oh my God, my room's a mess. And I remember trying to keep my face straight for that, because I was like, yeah, that's probably the first thing I would think too, is my room's a mess. But I just said, don't worry about it. I just see what I need to see. It's a little bubble. And I know that there's a TV there. I know you have 2 nightstands. I know you have a door that goes out onto the deck, and the deck's not finished. And I just kind of went through, and she's like looking at me, right? And again, what is that? Is it remote viewing? I don't know. But there's a part of me that can just walk over there without walking over there. And that time it happened while I was sitting for coffee explaining this to her. Like it didn't happen in the session where I was actually doing the energy work at night. It happened after, because she was like, I don't understand. Like, I can't get sleep. And they're like, well, they're showing me your TV. So either we leave it on or it's on. And she says, yeah, I can't fall asleep unless I have the TV on. I said, okay, that's your problem. So we had to go through a whole process of explaining that, right? Because we're downloading things in our brain, and then she got anxiety, right? And that can exacerbate that because you're leaving something on. It's just triggered. It's triggered full of hypnosis stuff all on the level. So she didn't understand that. And I don't know that she really gave it much credit after, but I'll tell you, if she shut it off, she would. And it may take her a while because she's one of those people. And like I said, replace it with music, soft music, instead of, the commercials and stuff, letting it play, man. That's just like, whoo, that's heavy duty. So anyway, what is that? What is that when you can just go there and do that? And I remember thinking, okay, and I was studying remote viewing way before that. And I don't know, I got into it, understood it, and then left. I did a few things and I was like, oh, the report, like I picked up on a few things, but I wasn't impressed with the results at all. And then I just carried on to something else because I was like, yeah, it's not my strong point here. So we'll move on. But, you can build it. It's like a muscle in anything, right? And for me, like I've built so much energy in the clairvoyance area. And again, that's how far do we go with this? Like, that's the thing. I can see things. Like I saw our house and then they explained the deck. And then as soon as I said, you have a deck and it's not finished, then boom, then I saw the whole deck and the whole yard. And I said, you got this. And she just looked at me like, she goes, you've never been to my house. And I said, no, but I don't have to because I can go there. And that was when I wasn't even in a meditative state. So what is that? Is that astral projection? Because I was coherent, I was talking to her, and I was going over there. So is that bilocation? This is where the lines get fuzzy for me. I don't know. And again, what's the essence way of what is that? That whole thing of me seeing stuff in two scenarios at once, and also feeling it in the physical, or not the physical, in the spiritual body, feeling it and not knowing what, it's an extra layer. So anyway, there's a lot of stuff here that I, that they're going to call pseudoscience and whatnot. But again, in the future, it's going to be different. It's going to be telepathy. It's just going to be everyday stuff that we use. And we're going to be able to accept more on a deeper level that is the truth. They can't deny it anymore. It's just too prominent. Again, well, they are denying. They're brainwashing people to think it's something else other than what it is. And when you see through all that stuff, sometimes it's frustrating because these people are kind of limiting themselves, putting themselves into a box along with that energy outside of them. So anyway, I just wanted to come in and share some of those stories, share some of the stuff. Yeah, I'll leave it at that for now. It's going to be a long one. So if you want to hear more stories like this, maybe I can minimize it to one story per session. There's going to be, the next report will be a carded reading. And I think there'll be one or two they're showing me, and that's it. And then I'll be restructuring again back to either love or spirituality. I think I'm going back to the love readings here. It's their turn in the Rumble group. So I have a Rumble page. It's Infinity Readings on Rumble, and there's no space, nothing. And you can't get to it if you put Infinity Readings. You won't get to it. You have to put Infinity Readings with no space, all one word, and you'll get. And don't ask me why, but there's two, speaking of two realities at once, there's two IDs that I have there. One will be more current, the other one's fallen off. So that weird stuff like that happens to me all the time, so I can't. A lot of accounts that I have, there's two accounts that come out when I make one. So I don't know why that happens, but it just happens. So on Rumble, Infinity Readings, no space, and you'll get to the love readings. On YouTube, I'm going to keep the spirituality and the energy reports here. They did want me to split the energy reports from Rumble and YouTube, But then they said, no, we need you to do that. So I'm doing this right now, is this whole set of, and I think it's because this is the tumultuous part. And this is where things start to change. And this is where, right? We're here now. And because I cannot narrow this week into an energy report, because we have sun, we have clouds, we have fog, we have lightning strikes, and we have wind, and we have rain, and we have, it's all everything mixed into one. And basically it's all of that energy swirling around trying to settle. It's karmic energy trying to settle. It's negative energy trying to settle. It's everything trying to settle. So next week we'll go back, and then there might be one more week after that. We'll see what happens, and we'll go from there. Again, I just do as I'm told. Take care, guys. Have fun and be kind, and we will talk to you next week.